Please welcome back director Sonia Kennebeck. Sonia, we can see in the film that you've been following this case for a long time, it seems. I should say, for context, if people don't know your earlier work, that you previously made a film called National Bird about whistleblowers. So you've been in that world for many years. When did you come to Reality Winner's case?
Yeah, so I'm very interested in whistleblower stories because I really want to know, especially around national security whistleblowers, like who are these people who sacrifice so much and feel the urge to disclose information in the public interest and really, to their own detriment. And so when, I did this film about drone whistleblowers, and when Reality Winner's case became public, my producing partner, Ines Hofmann-Kenner, and I, we immediately talked about it because national security whistleblowers are incredibly rare because of the stakes. The stakes are so incredibly high. And but on the other hand, they've disclosed some of the most important information, to the public, mass surveillance, torture, election interference, drone wars. And so when it became public that there was another NSA whistleblower after Edward Snowden, we were curious who this person was, and we found out it's this young woman, 25 years old. And it really, we wanted to learn more about, who she is, why she made this decision. And a few months later, after she was arrested, I flew down to Augusta, Georgia, and attended, without a camera at first, one of the pre-trial hearings. And what I found so disturbing, actually, was that I expected there would be, big media coverage, camera crews outside, because there was a time when people were discussing election interference. And that was not the case. So we were actually in the process of producing Enemies of the State, our other film, and we thought someone has to witness this and someone has to document this. This is a historic case. So we decided to take on a second feature documentary.
Do you have any interpretation of why this case was being neglected? Is it perhaps because during the Trump administration there was so much kind of daily craziness in the news cycle, or other reasons?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it still. I think that's one of the reasons. There were, every day something new was happening. There was so much to report about. And then the case was, the pre-trial hearings were in Augusta, Georgia. They were not in the Washington, D.C. area. How many, other cases are taking place in that area where there are just more national security journalists. So I think that's one of the reasons. And also, we have wondered, it's one of the reasons as well that, she had a different profile. This was this young woman. Then, of course, I think national security whistleblower cases, they still, they are considered, controversial. Whistleblowers are often named with, other leakers or spies even. But what's really important for me to share is that whistleblowers, by definition, disclose information in the public interest, waste, fraud, abuse, illegal activity. So they do it for the public and not for personal interest or gain.
Edward Snowden is a memorable presence in this film. Brings a lot of great insight and context. Can you talk about the experience of interviewing him?
Yes, it was, for me, of course, as an investigative filmmaker, I identify as a journalist as well. It was, I was really looking forward to this interview, to meet this person who is still in exile in Russia and really contributed to our knowledge about, mass surveillance and data collection. And, it took a lot of preparation. And there were certainly some, amongst like all of my work, there are always strange things that happen, and you always wonder, am I just paranoid, or what else is going on here? But when we had this material in post-production, there were kind of two strange things that we saw afterwards. One was one of the cameras was shivering and shaking all the time, even though we didn't move it constantly. That definitely didn't happen. And then on the other camera in the background, some of the footage was actually distorted. We had to fix it in post-production. I asked our post-production supervisor about it, and he actually asked us, did we have a big magnet close to our camera? And we said no. So I don't know what was going on. So we were definitely wondering about that. But we did the interview pretty much in plain sight, because when you interview Edward Snowden in Russia, you don't even have to try to hide.
There's going to be magnets around.
For sure, yeah.
Can you talk about where Reality Winner is at today?
Yes. So Reality Winner, she spent the entire pre-trial period she was in this jail. I always expected to interview her. I never thought that I would have to, make a film with an absent character again, like in my previous film, Enemies of the State. And she was never let out. I really never expected she would be treated this harshly. And then afterwards, she went immediately into prison. She was over 4 years in prison, or around 4 years. And then we tried to do interviews. We did multiple requests. We wrote open letters with the Freedom Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, and we couldn't get access to her. And then quite recently, she was released into home confinement. It's a very strict home confinement. The parents built her the house, and she actually is not allowed to go to her tiny house. She has to stay in the parents' house, in her childhood room. And then the end of this month, she's going to, her regular sentence is over, but she's going to be on supervised release for another 3 years. So she is under, very strict conditions, and and will have some, sort of restrictions, for a very, very long time, unless she receives a pardon.
Let's take some questions from the audience. Raise your hand if you have a question. I'll call on you. Yeah, please stand up and speak loudly. Can you talk more about the relationship between Reality and her mother, and how she seems to draw strength from her mother? Yeah,
the Winner family, Winner Davis family, is really very, very close, as you can see. And I found it remarkable, also to follow her mother's journey, who actually, you saw where they're coming from, rural Texas. They are definitely more on the conservative spectrum, they own guns. And for Billie Winner Davis, this really was, it turned her world, her life upside down. First, like, just, I think, generally politically, her worldview. Like, she always was in public service, and all of a sudden, she never expected this could happen, to her own family. And she, she moved to Augusta, Georgia, and I know, I've spoken to Reality about it. That meant a lot for her. Reality was really struggling tremendously in jail. Like, there's a brief mention of it. Depression, anxiety, eating disorder, and she was, for this entire time, for over a year, in this one jail room that was not for long-term, meant for long-term detainment. So they really put her under a lot of pressure. But yes, I think if her mother wasn't there, who knows what would have happened. She really gave Reality this constant support, no matter what. And but yeah, also I was that's why, you know, I just seeing it again on the big screen as well, you know, the way the mother just so strongly believed in what her daughter did was right. I think that is also something that, you know, really gave reality strength. And I'm not sure if she would have actually expected that her family would be this supportive for what she decided to do.
She was asking, the document that you say in the film is now public, where can the audience track that down?
Yes, you can see it, for example, on the Intercept website still. And yeah, what I found so interesting that, you know, during this time, while reality was, you know, so harshly treated, the Mueller investigation was taking place, and that's why, you know, I included some of Mueller's sound bites. And when you actually go into the Mueller report and read it, or the indictments of, you know, the Russian hackers, there's so much more detailed information, and, you know, about the technology as well. And when you compare it to the document that Reality Winner disclosed, you do wonder, you know, why is it still classified?
Hand up in the back. The question is, do you have any guess as to why the sentence was so harsh?
I think one of the reasons, and they said it, so she was sort of Trump's signature Espionage Act case. So I think, you know, there was a lot of pressure also within the DOJ to really treat her very harshly, to make her an example. And they also say, you know...
we hear that in the language of the official statement, that, you know, we hope this will serve as an example.
Deterrence. And yeah, so they really wanted to make an example out of her. But it's also important to know, and that's why, you know, I included the history of how the Espionage Act has been used against whistleblowers. It started under Obama to prosecute so many national security whistleblowers. And yeah, and what I have been, you know, looking into these cases, you know, trying to do these statistics of how many people have been prosecuted. What is remarkable is that not everyone is treated the same way, and there are different laws that could be used against whistleblowers, you know, mishandling classified information, misuse of a government computer. And then there are some people like General Petraeus who really just got away with a, you know, slap on his wrist. So what I have been, you know, seeing documenting these cases over so many years is that you know, not everyone is treated the same under law, and there's a lot of arbitrary treatment and extremely harsh treatment, in particular of whistleblowers who, as I said before, have been disclosing, you know, some really important national security information.
Hand up in the back. So the question is about that recording that you make heavy use of the FBI conversation with Reality Winner, how you got that and how that shaped your shaping of the story.
Yeah, so at the very beginning of the case, the prosecution had released the transcript of the interrogation of Reality Winner. And, you know, pretty early on, I really wanted to get the original audio because, you know, it was clear they had recorded it and they were using the transcript to make a case against her. But I was wondering what you could actually hear in the audio. And yes, it is very crucial because there was this extreme, you know, there were so many power imbalances in this interrogation. You know, they sent 11 male FBI agents to her, 9 of them armed. They took her into this back room of her home. We filmed in the actual room in this house, the interrogation where she was interrogated. And I really wanted to, you know, it's difficult when you just, you know, read the transcript and you know, you're not exactly sure, you know, how is the intonation, you know, how did it sound? Am I just envisioning, you know, sort of how she sounded in that moment? So we filed Freedom of Information Act requests. The FBI denied it. We filed appeals, and then eventually we had to sue them because they wouldn't, you know, move on it. The DOJ actually sided with our film team, and after around 2 years, We sued them with the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, and we won the FOIA lawsuit against the FBI, and got the audio recording. It was very, very late in post-production. We had already recorded the audio, so I always wanted to use it because it is such an important and revealing document as well. There's actually a Broadway play going on right now, Is This a Room, that also uses the transcript. And so we had, then Natalia Daya was reading Reality Winner's role, and then a few weeks before the world premiere, we actually received the disclosure, because the judge was actually saying in a FOIA case she was not having it, and it was so important. We reopened the film, and I do think it just gives another dimension, because yes, you hear the men, you hear how reality is getting quieter and quieter. I think you can hear sort of the uncertainty, the fear in her voice. She was cornered, and then it's also I think it's important to share as well that people always think like, oh, maybe she should have known or so, but many people cooperate. This is a situation of extreme stress. And this power.
And she's 25 years old.
Exactly, and she was in the military as well. And so, I think they really selected the people. Like, they could have sent a woman, they didn't. So, and all of that plays into her, eventual, confession.
So he's asking about working with the Intercept. Betsy Reed gave you an interview. Two other journalists, Matthew Cole and Richard Esposito, you say declined to be interviewed. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, the Intercept part, of course, was crucial to the story, because they actually interrogated and arrested Reality Winner 2 days before the Intercept even published this document. So that's the other thing. Like, I think Reality Winner was very, very surprised by this early visit. And yeah, it was really important for me to include, their perspective of the story. And we worked really hard on getting them to participate. And I really respect that they let us into their newsroom. We actually started doing interviews while the case was still in the pretrial hearings. So we had to at first be very sensitive about what we could talk about, how we would phrase certain things. And yes, I was very, very happy that we could have this discussion, and that they are, acknowledging openly that they made mistakes. Of course, I would have liked very much to interview the actual reporters, even though Betsy Reed also says, it was, these were errors in the newsroom. The security team was not involved. So, there were more people involved. But the reporters' perspectives would have been important for me to learn as well, because it is, working with national security sources, it's very high risk. And it's, and I also hope that people don't get out of this film being, scared or self-censoring, because we need this type of reporting. And this part, the Intercept part, it is tricky to me, because I'm a journalist. I have original sources. I do original reporting. So it really was, I wanted to be, fair to the situation that investigative reporters are facing nowadays. So yeah, we really, wanted to include it and show these challenges. But the stakes are very high, and that's why, I really think that, if we want to have a free press, which I think is incredibly important for democracy, we have to protect whistleblowers, because otherwise, we won't get access to this type of information.
You're the first audience in New York to see the film. It has another screening in theaters on...
It's on Monday. So this coming Monday at 4:15 at Annapolis, Chelsea. And I would love to also just point out two of my
you have a special guest.
very special guests here, Insa Rudolph, who's the composer, and she's also a trained jazz vocalist. And Insa and I, we've worked together for almost 10 years. She has composed the scores of all of my independent films.
We hear her
films.
at the end, the song at the end.
Exactly,
right?
which is inspired by Reality Winner's poem, which you probably heard. And so, yeah, Insa Rudolph.
Back there. Yeah.
And then also I would like to, and I don't, it's really bright up here, but Gisela Fuller-Silvestre is the sound designer and sound mixer, and she's also a composer. And yeah, can you please stand up with our sound design and sound mixing? So thanks for sharing this moment with us. We are an independent team. I make independent films, so if you come out and support us and share the screenings, and also, you can actually also watch it online as well. So please share with your friends. Yeah, that's what you can do as an
available
audience.
on the It's available on the Doc NYC online platform across the United States. So it doesn't have to be anyone in New York. If you know someone anywhere, let them know. The film goes online tomorrow. So thank you very much for coming. There's 5 more days of Doc NYC. I hope you get to see more documentaries. Thanks especially to Sonia Kennebeck.